14-year-old Carly Gregg was a really good student. In fact, she was Student of the Year at Northwest Rankin High School in Brandon, Mississippi. Carly's mom, Ashley Smiley, was a teacher at the school. Now, for most moms, this would be an ideal situation, being close to your child who was excelling in school. But inside their home and inside the mind of Carly Gregg, everything wasn't okay. She was battling serious issues that seemingly manifested themselves one day inside their home. Carly allegedly armed herself with a gun and confronted her mother. She discharged that weapon 3 times, taking her mother's life. Then, in a bizarre twist, she allegedly contacted a friend to come over and showed her the dead body. Then, when her stepfather returned home, she fired the gun again, wounding him. He survived, and today he took the stand in Carly's murder trial. And we are live from Mississippi with all the latest.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. A big hour ahead, 2 really, really big stories. We begin with Carly Gregg, who was just 14 years old. 14 years old. Think about that age. Think about your children when they were 14. Think about yourself when you were 14, what life was like, what life was about. What are your concerns? What's going on? Was it a difficult time for you? Was it a difficult time for your kids? Clearly a difficult time for Carly Gregg. Something really wrong was going on inside of her mind. Really wrong. The question is, obviously for this jury, was it criminal what was happening inside her mind? Now, we saw her in court yesterday, and she was an absolute mess listening to the 911 call. And in those moments when you look at her, she looks like a young girl. She's only 15 at this point, but actually appears younger than that age. So you look at this child in court crying, a complete mess, and you think, wow, like, this really has done a number on her. Like, she's somewhere else. But then you contrast that level of despair, whatever it was that we saw yesterday in court, and you compare that to what we see in the video from the day of the shootings. And she's caught on camera, and it's not that same level of crying, despair, and emotion. Looks more like you're trying to do something and get away with it. I mean, that's what it looked like. So this is some of the evidence in this case, because obviously they're not going to say she didn't do it. What they're saying is, okay, she's 14 and she's got a lot of issues. That this isn't criminal behavior because of her state of mind, lack of maturity, mental disease or defect, whatever's going on with her. She wasn't able to really understand and apprehend the nature of what she was doing. But you'll see the video from the day. The stepfather who survived this, miraculously, I don't know how, but he survived this, some gut-wrenching testimony from him about what happened, about what is going on, and everything that he's been through and this family has been through. His wife shot and killed and murdered, gone. But he survived it, so he's got to deal with that. And then he's got a stepdaughter. And, you know, you could say the word step, but he stepped into the shoes of being her father. And she's alive, but she tried to kill me, and she killed her mother, my wife. How do you process all of that? It's not easy. Not easy at all. Heath Smiley is his name. Let's take a listen to some of his testimony.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen exactly what you remember about when you came home on March the 19th, 2024.
Everything seemed pretty normal, and came on in, and when I opened the door to the kitchen, there. Gun went off in my face before the door was, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches wide open. And everything kind of went pretty fast from there. It was a blur. Gun flash in my face, and then it went off 2 more times, but my hand was on the gun after the first shot, and I twisted it from her.
Who was pointing that gun at you?
It was Carly.
Who pulled the trigger when you opened the door?
The first one I know was Carly. After that, my hand was on the gun too, and I know I had a scratch on my thumb and all. I very well could have hit it. I know that third time.
Did you ever get struck by a bullet?
Yes, one of them kind of grazed right through this muscle up here.
Can you tell, ladies and gentlemen, what did that feel like?
I know this sounds weird, but I honestly have never felt it to this day. She was screaming out of her mind, scared. It was like she had seen a demon or something. She was terrified. And my first thought was there was an intruder somewhere, and she thought she was after somebody else.
And to be clear, Carly never told you that she thought somebody else was in the house, right?
No, that's the feeling that I got. She was terrified out of her mind.
He survived. Somehow, some way, he survived all of that. She'd saved 3 bullets for him, but he was able to wrestle that gun away from her. All right, let's bring in our guest. Joining us tonight to help break down this case, Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, who's been inside that courtroom today. Kelly, great to see you. Thanks so much. Wow, what a day. Incredible emotion and the reality of what actually happened there. What did the stepfather, Heath, say about finding Ashley?
Good evening to you, Vinny. Really compelling testimony when Heath Smiley was on the stand. And I just want to describe this courthouse. So behind me, you can see the courthouse, very small. Inside, only 3 courtrooms. And so when Carly Gregg ends up walking in, some relatives of hers, they're in the front row of the gallery, and they always do some exchanges, kind of smile at one another. And then when her stepfather was on the stand, he was asked to identify the person who shot him, and he said Carly Gregg, his stepdaughter. And when he did so, they both smiled at one another. This was as he was then proceeding to talk about how he discovered his wife being dead, and he had looked all throughout the house, and the last place that he looked was his stepdaughter's bedroom, and that's where he found his wife. Let's listen to some of that testimony.
Checked our bedroom, bathroom, closet, other side of the bed, under the desk in there, and turned and started going towards the other end of the house. And I glanced in our spare little 3rd bedroom, and then turned and went into Carly's room. And that's where I found Ashley.
When you found Ashley, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen what you saw?
She was laying on her back and had her hands kind of across her, and a towel over her face.
Do you remember what color the towel was?
I do not.
When you saw her laying there, what's the very next thing that you did?
Checked her pulse and see, and kind of moved the towel, and then called 911.
So, Vinny, you could just hear it in his voice. Just really hard for him to recall all of those events that day, which obviously turned out to be an extremely tragic day for him.
Hey, you know, the shock at the door and then trying to figure out what's going on and then searching desperately for his wife and then finding her that way. Let's talk about the home security footage, because I think this is an important piece of testimony or piece of evidence for this jury.
It is, Vinny, and when you mentioned at the beginning talking about her being a young woman, so 14, 15 years old now, so a teenager, inside this courtroom, when she walks in and when I see her, she does look like just this little girl, and you think, how could this have happened? She does look like a little girl. Her stepfather described her as a sweet little girl. This is after that she attempted to kill him as well, tried to kill him. And so this surveillance video that they ended up showing in court, you see a very different person. You don't even see the same person that's walking into the courtroom. You see a different girl that looks like you see her kind of hiding behind some walls, watching what her mother's doing. So why don't we go ahead and play this? We're going to play two. The first one is when the stepfather is coming home. You can see him come out of his car. This is when, so Ashley and her mom, they're at the same school. Her mother's a teacher at the school. And this is them coming home. And eventually you're going to see Carly Gregg. She's gathering some things out of the car from school, maybe backpack. You can't really see the items, but just gathering some things out of the vehicle. Eventually you do see her stepfather pull up. Now, what it appears from the evidence, that's her stepfather pulling up. Carly had texted her stepfather, pretending to be the mother, saying, honey, when are you going to be home? And this was from the mother's phone. This is what the testimony indicates, that it was Carly that did the texting. So you see the stepfather. He's going to eventually make his way into the garage, and then he makes his way into the kitchen, and then the video captures the sound. It captures the gunshots and the screaming. And then that's when you see Carly running away, as well as that friend who was running behind Carly. And that's the friend that Carly had called over to ask her if she's ever seen a dead body. And so that was one of the videos that was played while Heath Smiley was on the stand. And then another video was played when an investigator was on the stand. And this one was really hard to watch. A lot of people were gathering around in the back to watch one of the monitors. The jurors had a monitor in front of them, and they were watching. And I could tell even one of the gentlemen, he was wiping away some tears, because you know what's about to come. Why don't we go ahead and play that video? I want to say, you don't see the shooting, you hear the sound, but knowing what's going to come, it is kind of hard to watch. I want to give that warning. Let's watch that. So that video was played for the jurors in court today, capturing the sound of when Carly Gregg ended up shooting and killing her mother. And then you saw her there. What an investigator said on the stand, it appeared that she knew that she was being recorded. This is what the investigator on the stand said, because you couldn't see what was behind her back. And the investigator is saying that there's something behind her back, and then she set something down, which sounds like it was the gun. But defense counsel was quick to point out we never saw the gun right there, but the state said it did sound like it, and the investigator said that as well, Vinny. So hard video to watch, a very tough time in the courtroom today watching this.
You hear the crying in the background. She grabs it again. Looks like she's going back in there to the room. Sounds like the mother is still making noise, was still alive. She's texting calmly from the kitchen, and the dogs sort of just follow her. I mean, it's obvious that she's hiding something behind her back, that she knows the camera's there.
She knows the camera's there, and even before some of the clips before this, you saw Carly kind of walking in and out of the house. You saw the mother going in and out of the refrigerator. Kind of, I don't know, it seems as if maybe she was looking for Carly. I don't really know. There was some testimony that Carly, it appears, maybe got in trouble that day at school for something, maybe possibly with a cell phone. So who knows exactly what took place. But yes, then the surveillance video does show Carly, and shows her kind of looking around the corner and then going in there after a mom, and then hearing the screams and then going back in there again, Vinny.
The calm demeanor afterwards is the most chilling part to me. All right, let's get back to Heath Smiley. What did he say about the family dynamics inside that home?
Vinny, and this was interesting testimony to listen to, because he was asked on direct examination, did she ever get into any trouble? Did she do anything wrong? And he did mention a few times. He said, one, there was a knife that she did bring to school. So he mentioned that, and then she had to go to an alternative school after that, because the school had a zero tolerance for that. Then there was just another time when there was some cheating with some kind of test, but everyone was testifying, including Heath, that she was a genius, well beyond her years in regards to her intelligence. And really, she just got tired of other students asking her for answers or help with their homework. And so it appears one time she took a photograph of a test that was opened and maybe shared it with some other students, and so then that was labeled as cheating. But that was about the extent of bad incidents that he talked about. He really said they had a great relationship, and they still communicate now every day. Why don't we go ahead and listen to that testimony?
Do you and Carly still have a relationship?
Yes, I think we're good.
Okay. And how frequently do you and Carly talk?
Just about every day now. I don't always get off of work in time to catch her on a phone call, but we text some back and forth over the app that's allowed, and we talk over the video chat thing that's allowed through the jail, and on weekends. So we're good.
So, Vinny, it's hard to imagine, but you heard it right from his mouth there, that they have a good relationship right now. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, he describes her as just a sweet little girl.
Kelly Craft in Mississippi tonight. Thank you so much. Excellent reporting, as always. Okay, let's get a little more analysis of all this. Joining me tonight, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Dr. Lieberman, I want to follow up on what we just heard, where the stepfather and Carly speak almost every day. Is that healthy? Is that healthy for him? Is that healthy for her?
Yes. I mean, you know, she needs him, of course, more than he needs her right now. But you could really tell that there was a sincere, authentic kind of communication between the two of them, where there had been, you know, this love, this close relationship. You know, his testimony was one sort of psychological bomb after another. Not a bomb in a bad way, but just these things that give you insight into her. And it was, you know, it was pieces of a puzzle, like a big jigsaw puzzle, where each little bomb would land, you know, in a different place on the puzzle. And it's starting to put the picture together. Of course, her biological father is one of the biggest missing pieces. I don't know if he's going to be testifying, but it seems to me that he needs to. We need to know more details about him.
And what about that surveillance video where we see her very calm? She shoots her mother, then very calmly comes back in the kitchen, hiding the gun from the camera, and then sends a text message out. We believe the text message was likely to her stepfather, to have him come home to the house so he could shoot her. So she could shoot him.
Shoot him. Yes, that part is a little chilling. You know, in terms of not guilty by reason of insanity, it's certainly, she certainly seems like, I don't know, it is more chilling. I mean, I go back and forth with thinking that she is, you know, really, she would meet not guilty by reason of insanity. And then on the other hand, I think there are some things, well, what's the most interesting, the biggest part of what he testified about that makes the most sense in terms of explaining things is how her mother and her biological mother and father had another child, a daughter, who died from some genetic disorder. And that this was probably what made her mother become more protective, overprotective of Carly. And the difference between what it was like in her house with her mother and stepfather compared to what it was with her biological father, and she was apparently going back and forth, and her mother was trying to decrease the visitation with the biological father. But it was like two completely different worlds. She said her biological father had drugs all around the house. He was using drugs all the time. He was blowing smoke in her face from smoking drugs. He got her, I guess, to drink an entire beer when she was 12. I mean, you know, we're going from a drug den, essentially, on the one hand, to a mother who, you know, I think was rather overprotective, a little too much, even though we can understand why, that she didn't want her to die or to have any problems like her other daughter. But that was crazy making, you know, and I think part of her, even though the stepfather said that both Carly and her mother were terrified in talking about the biological father. But at the same time, I think she had some desire to be with him.
We're out of time for tonight. Dr. Carol Lieberman, thank you so much. When we come back, we'll bring in our think tank, Plus, coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, the big story of the day. Hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs arrested by law enforcement and indicted by a federal grand jury. What was going on at Diddy's freak-off parties? We investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan.
In every story, in every trial, every case, there's at least two sides to it.
To dive into the latest.
Oh my God.
And breaking true crime stories.
This was a very targeted, very personal attack.
Inside.
I've never seen that in Discovery. I've been incarcerated 3 years.
And outside of the courtroom.
She's a psychopath.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central. Only on Court TV.
Around the time that y'all found the iPod and Carly was cutting her thighs, is that about the same time that Ashley took her for therapy for anxiety and stress?
Within, I don't know, I think that was maybe a couple months maybe before, it seems like.
Is that your understanding, though? That's what you told law enforcement of why Carly was in therapy, was anxiety and stress?
Yes, ma'am, it was something like that. I think she was kind of depressed some days.
That's Heath Smiley, the stepfather who was shot, survived, shot by Carly Gregg, his stepdaughter. She's on trial. Her mental state is front and center in this case. It's what it's all about. Let's listen to more of his testimony talking about what sort of issues that Carly Gregg was dealing with.
Had you ever seen Carly be violent?
No.
Had there ever been any incidents in which Carly was in trouble for being violent?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Had you ever seen Carly enraged?
No.
Had you ever seen Carly get mad?
No, she'd get frustrated with something every now and then if she couldn't make something work like she wanted to, or something in a video game, but she would work at it over and over and over till she figured it out and got it.
What, if any, issues had you and Ashley been having with Carly?
Just not really any problems with her, other than I think she was kind of at times depressed, or she's a teenage girl, maybe emotional, but she ended up, we got her to a clinic up close to her, I guess it's in Madison there, to let her talk with a therapist.
Okay, and what had led you and Ashley to decide to put Carly in counseling?
She just didn't seem like she was her normal happy, peppy self. She was just kind of depressed and sitting around more, and she, she said she thought talking to somebody might help her.
Are you aware of any medication Carly had been placed on?
And I can't remember the names of which one was which. She had been placed on one by the therapist that they had started her on something.
And do you recall what that medication was for?
Whatever they thought it was, whether it was, I don't know, just generalized stress or depression, or I don't know what they were thinking it was.
Okay. And do you recall how many medications that she'd been on?
I know she was on one, and then approximately the week before the 19th, they swapped her to another one.
Okay. And with the first medication that Carly was on, did you notice any changes in her personality or demeanor?
No.
And with the second medication that Carly was on, did you notice any changes in her personality or demeanor?
No. She had only had a chance to be on it for a handful of days. I don't know exactly how many days, but she was just getting started on it.
So she was dealing with some mental health issues, was medicated, and had just changed her medication. Does that explain this? Is that enough in this case for the defense? Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, trial attorney, fellow of the American College Trial Lawyers, Ann Bremner. Also with us, trial attorney Rick King and criminal defense attorney Ian Friedman. Great to see everyone tonight. Ann, what are your thoughts about this? She is apparently medicated, and if just a few days before all this happens, switches that medication.
I don't think it's going to be enough. I mean, she's going to be presumed able at least to commit a crime, and then you're looking at an insanity defense. I mean, she knew what she was doing, the nature and quality of her act, and she was not apparently suffering from, severe mental disease or defect. I mean, both of those things are going to be on her side to have to prove. But, geez, what a horrible case when you watch that home surveillance of her shooting her mom so coldly. And like you said, what was most chilling is the way that she acted right afterwards. Just got right on her phone and started texting her friend. I'm sure it said, "Have you ever seen a dead body?"
Yeah, Rick, you watch this part of the video. This is after the shooting has just happened. What does it tell you, and is there any argument that you can make based on this video to a jury that, hey, yeah, she's out of her right mind here. He doesn't know right from wrong. She doesn't appreciate the wrongfulness of what she's just done.
I mean, I think I take all the things that you and Ann just talked about, the callousness with which she appears to be acting here, the calmness that she has, and I wrote it down because I didn't know that fact that she had just switched medications within a few days. And when he said that, I wrote that down. I was like, if that's my case, man, I'm going through that medication. I'm trying to find out what the side effects are, and I'm trying to make hay out of that. To me, that sounds like something that a defense lawyer could work with.
Ian, the jury's listening to Heath Smiley, her stepfather, who's living in that house with her, knows her better than anyone else in that courtroom, and he was shocked. Like, this was out of left field for him. So what are your thoughts about the changed medication? Is that the key to the defense trying to explain what happened here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stepfather brings it right up to the door. He was a great witness for the jury to hear all of a sudden, she's perfectly fine. No outbursts, nothing, beyond what you would expect from a teenager. No problems, no violence, no this, no that, until, there's the word, until she switches this medication. And as soon as she switches it, days later, just as Rick was saying, days later, this behavior happens. So he's exactly right. This client is exactly, or these facts are exactly where we would hone in on those medications to determine what the effects were. Was she weaned off the other medications properly? Was this the right med? So this entire case right now, the defense is going to focus on what's going on right in here. There's a couple, the facts of the case, how she appears on the tape doesn't look good. She's got going for her age. As we know, jurors want to believe that there's something wrong with a young person who would commit something like this. It's now what the experts are going to say was going on with those medications and how it counteracted with her head.
And do you think the jury adopts any of the sympathy that Heath Smiley seemingly has? That, like, he speaks to her every day. They exchanged a smile in the courtroom. Does that open the door for the jury to say, okay, the victim is good with her, and the victim understands that wasn't really her?
I thought that was so compelling. I think that's going to be a great piece for the defense. That smile they exchanged. He's your dad. He stepped in as dad, and he loves her obviously. And he's telling the jury, this isn't the child that I was raising. Something snapped, something happened. Maybe it's the medication, but this just wasn't the one. That's nice, kind girl, great student, great child, great daughter to me. I think it's going to be huge for the jury.
All right, Rick, I'm going to give you a lot of power right now. Your last name is King, by the way. If you could wave your wand here and you deliver justice here, what would be justice in this situation given all of these facts? Not an easy one. She's 14. We've seen the video, the medication, the age, the victim's testimony. What's justice here?
Vinny, I don't know what my magic wand would want to do in this case. I'll be honest, this is tough. There's a woman, a wonderful woman by all accounts, who's dead, and we know who did it. Now, as a I guess in my own person, I am reluctant to throw children away. Because we always say they lack the if Mike was here, they lack the mental capacity for all these decisions that we say that they can't make. And now here we are throwing her away for the rest of her life because of something that she probably, by all accounts, might be as a result of a medication change. That's a difficult call for me. If you're asking me to wave the wand.
I know, it's tough. That's why I asked you, because this one has a lot of folks, they're angry, but then they hear this other part, and then Heath Smiley testifies.